I guess we'll just have to have a pen shootout today. So that was my Clint Eastwood impression. Why? Well, today we're going to have a pen shootout. This is something new. I haven't done that before. This was suggested to me by a couple of people quite a while ago, and today I want to do my first. So what I want to do in these pen shootouts is not give you a review of a pen. I want to compare two pens that somehow are worthy to be compared. There's a reason to compare the two, and then we'll have a pen shootout. So today I would like to have a look at the Lamy 2000 versus the Montblanc 220. Now, as you can see, these pens do seem to share a couple of features. They're both from the 60s. This is a modern-made Lamy 2000, but the design is from the 60s, and so is the design of the Montblanc. And if I understood correctly, then the 220 was actually Montblanc's answer to the Lamy 2000. And that seems to make sense. If you look at them, I'm not sure how well my camera will pick that up, but as you can see, the material is pretty much the same. I think it's called Macrolon. It's a type of plastic, I think. It's light, and it has a very interesting texture. It's actually pretty nice to the touch. I like them both. Okay, so let's try to do this in a structured way. The two pens have roughly the same size. The 2000 is just a little bit bigger, and the 2000 excuse me, the 2000 has some more girth. You can see that here. It's a bit of a wider pen. Now, the two pens have caps that just pop off. Something I'm not going to do in this video is cover all the parts of the pen. If you're interested in that, check out my review of the 220 or my review of the 2000. And I want to reiterate in all of this. The two pens have an ink window. The two pens are piston fillers. You just twist the blind cap, piston moves up and down. The two pens have 14 karat gold nibs. With the 2000, there was apparently some covering going on, perhaps rhodium, I'm not sure. In any case, it looks silver instead of gold, whereas the 220 actually has a gold collar. That's a bit of a difference. The nib of the 220 is definitely bigger than that of the 2000. And in my case, both of these are oblique broad nib, so that's nice. If I can compare them, I'll do a writing sample, you can really see that they're both oblique, so that's a good thing to compare them. As I said, both piston fillers, so no cartridges, no converters. And here you can see them uncapped, really roughly the same size. Two nice pens. Okay, so which one do I like better? I can't say this. I really can't. I like them both. This is a vintage pen. The Montblanc 220 is no longer produced, so if you want this, you'd have to get it pre-owned. Therefore, I would say I prefer the 220 simply because it is more widely available. Apart from that, when it comes to the specifics of the pen and its actual specifications, I think this is a really nice pen. It's just a little, it has a little less girth than the 2000, and I think that actually makes it, well, perhaps a bit more pleasant to hold, even though there is nothing wrong with the 2000. I like it a lot, but for those of you with perhaps some smaller hands, well, I don't think this is too wide, but this will probably accommodate anyone. So, I like them both. Enough talk. I'll show you how to disassemble them completely. Maybe that's useful for some of you, and I will do a writing sample, which I think will be most interesting. So there you have it, the first pen shootout. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. I think the next shootout should be between the Montblanc 149 and the 146. Right now I can't do it because my 149 is at the repair shop, but once I get it back, I'll do a video on that if people think it's interesting. Alright, well, there we go. On to the writing. Bye-bye. Okay, so here we have them, the Montblanc 220 and the Lamy 2000. And one of the things I really like about these pens is that they can be disassembled completely. So with a bit of care, this is the Montblanc 220, so here I have the 14 karat gold nib. you can unscrew the section. Takes quite a bit of unscrewing. There we go. You unscrew this part. Now here we have the clear plastic, whatever it's called, thing that makes sure you can screw the section and the barrel together. Here we have the ink window, which is just a clear plastic ring. Here we have the section and the feed. They're an integral unit. You cannot remove the feed from the section. And here we have the barrel. And the barrel you can open up. Here we see the piston. See it? Then out comes another part. When you put it back together, make sure this end is towards the blind cap and this end is towards the nib. Why? Because it fits this way, but it will not fit this way, and this way you cannot assemble your pen. It will not screw in place because this is too long. Okay, and then here we have the blind cap with the actual piston thread. And of course the barrel. So that's it. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 parts we have a Montblanc 220. Here we have a Lamy 2K, the 2000. Well, actually you can disassemble this one too, and according to a scheme that really looks like or resembles the one from the Montblanc 220. So here we have the section, the nib and the feed, and if you're careful you can sort of push them back in. I prefer to use my thumbnail to make sure I don't scratch anything on the nib. Here we have the nib and the feed. You want to remove the nib, often you can put on a bit of scotch tape, then easily pull it off. Little trick, not from me, this is something I learned from Brian Goulet's videos. Then we have the barrel. This pen has an ink window too, but this is built in, so you cannot take it out as with the Montblanc. I think the easiest way is to hold this nib end upwards, blind cap downwards, simply unscrew it. Now usually it goes to this end, this far, but you can just keep unscrewing it. Just be gentle. You hear some clicking, but don't be worried. Out comes the blind cap and the little, I don't know what you call this, the piston thread screwing guide or whatever. And of course in there's the piston. Now what you can do is put this back in and screw it around a bit and then try to grab the piston. I prefer using this. This is just one of those disposable chopsticks. You can see I've used this a bit. I like using this because it's just fairly pliable wood, so you won't damage anything. You can stick it in the nib end of the pen, apply some pressure, and then very gently out comes the piston. You have to pull it a bit, but there you go. Here you have this plastic thing that I suppose that this keeps it in place and makes sure the piston doesn't move around inside the pen barrel or something. I'm not absolutely sure. So, another 9 parts, and there we have a Lamy 2K. Now let's assemble these again. Now I'm sure some of you are thinking, oh, he's not going to be able to do that. Well, don't worry. Sometimes it takes a while, but I can do it. The good thing about being able to disassemble a pen like this, I think, is that you can clean it very, very easily. And I really, would really enjoy it if all pens could be disassembled like this. It would really make a fountain pen user's life a lot simpler, because this is just great for cleaning your pens. This is a pretty robust pen, the 2K, so you can screw it together fairly easily. Be careful, by the way, in the end of the grip section is this little metal ring. Careful you don't lose that. Put it back in place, screw this back together. Don't over tighten this, this will actually snap or you know, tear at some point. Here we have a 2K. Now here, the Montblanc is always a bit more complicated to put back together for some reason. This part fits together. Screw the blind cap back in there quite a bit. If you don't do that, and you put the piston back in, Perhaps I can show you. I'm missing a part here, but that should be okay. If you don't do that, but you just start screwing this back in place, well, maybe I can't do that. Let me see. You start screwing this back in place, then this may or may not fit. So it's always a good idea to this part goes back in there like this. See, there you have it. Now I can't twist it any further, and there's still this yellow thing. So first screw the blind cap back in place. I find out that about 4 twists is ideal for my pen. Then twist this back in place, and as you can see now there's a tight fit. So by twisting the blind cap on there a bit before actually putting in the piston, you can avoid that problem. Okay, now in goes this part. The ink window, the metal parts go towards the nib because they keep the cap in place. Here we have the actual section. The nib, of course, be a little careful with that. It slides in place fairly easily with this pen. And we cap it, and we're done. Okay, inking them up. I got some simple Waterman Florida blue here. I put it in another bottle at some point, and now I can't open it anymore. So, what happens when you cannot open a bottle of ink? Well, grab yourself some water, put it under the cap. There's just some ink that is crusted there. Leave it for a bit, and there we go. Here we go too. Inky water. Who cares about inky water when you're a fountain pen user? I carefully wipe that off. Okay, here we go. Fill the pens. That was the 2000. Now we go with the Montblanc. The reason I use this simple water, well, I shouldn't say simple, I should say straightforward blue Waterman ink is that it's a bit of a gold standard. It's a well-behaved blue ink. I don't want anything fancy. I just want to show you the two pens side by side. So I don't want any fancy, brightly colored inks. Alright, here we go. Let me just grab some paper. I do reviews. I actually use the other sides too, by the way, for notes, but for my reviews I always use a fresh page. So here we go. Side by side. Let's start with the oldest one. The Montblanc 220. This is an oblique broad nib. The Lamy 2000. This too is an oblique broad nib, so it's nice to compare these two. Let's do some simple writing. And then the Lamy. The nib of the Lamy seems to be a bit broader than that of the Montblanc. So the writing takes a bit longer. I mean, it takes up a bit more space. Let's have a look at the lines, line variation. Both of these are oblique nibs, so they have a natural line variation. Strokes like these are narrower than strokes like those. it correctly for that effect to be really pronounced. This was with some pressure. Let's do the same here. So what I'm holding now is the Montblanc 220. This nib seems to be just a little bit broader than the nib on the Montblanc 220. Let's do some coloring. A nice, fairly even patch of ink. And pretty much the same thing here. Alright, well, something I write quite a bit. The two of these are fine pens, and I like both of them. They're both dear to me. I like them both, and they resemble each other. They have some properties they really share. In all, I like both pens. Clearly, this one you can just buy in a store, and this one you cannot buy in a store because this is a vintage pen that's discontinued. I can recommend both. I was able to pick this one up for, well, roughly half the price of this one, which was a good deal, I think, because it's a very nice pen. So which one you like best is up to you. This one is just a little bigger, as I've already told you. Both have good nibs. This one will be more widely available. In all, I think if you look at the writing, you see there isn't that much of a difference. This nib seems to be just a little broader than the Montblanc's nib, but that's pretty much it. So two very nice pens. I hope this was useful. The first fountain pen Shootout, and I'll see you later. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.